Program Director, Mr. Bongani Bingwa, Chairperson of the Road Freight Association, Mr. Penwell Lunga, Chief Executive Officer of the RFA, Mr. Gavin Kelly, Chief Executives of RFA member companies, members of the Road Freight Association, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must start by thanking you for inviting me to address your convention and share perspectives on the role of the road freight industry in economic recovery and growth. Our national policy trajectory is anchored on the National Development Plan, which enjoins us to invest in a strong network of economic infrastructure designed to support the country's medium and long-term objectives. If we are to achieve sustainable and inclusive growth by 2030, achieving this vision requires targeted development of transport as one of the sectors that make up the network industries. The emphasis of the National Development Plan is on promoting efficiency in transport and effective regulation of externalities. The NDP vision includes a recognition of the need for private sector participation. The freight system in South Africa is composed of a number of networks that link the country as well as the region. This is achieved through different modes of transport to deliver a wide range of services and goods. This function is dependent on the infrastructure and operations of the various modes, as well as the effectiveness of the intermodal interface. The exponential growth of freight traffic in the last decade continues to put pressure on the infrastructure and operations to deliver acceptable, cost-effective services in order to deal with the growth and level of demand. The road freight strategy constitutes our response to the system's inability to fulfill the demand of cargo at cost price, level of service, quality of service, reliability, in order to meet the country's developmental needs. South Africa's road network, both at primary and secondary levels, continues to play an important role in the development of the country's economy. The same roads should contribute towards addressing the glaring inequalities through investments in the development of the rural roads using innovative and labor-intensive methods while creating jobs. The Road Infrastructure Strategic Framework for South Africa was developed in partnership with all road authorities as a policy response to the roads infrastructure challenges facing the country. This framework remained the embodiment of roads policy, which must continue to be a reference point for all roads authorities in their planning. It embodies principles that seek to bridge the economic divide by emphasizing the need to maintain good quality strategic economic road infrastructure while elevating the profile of social infrastructure. It equally guides us in promoting the integration of transport planning with broader economic and social, spatial, and land use planning. Transport remains a key driver and enabler of economic activity and socio-economic emancipation. South Africa's road network is the largest and the longest interconnected road network in sub-Saharan Africa, covering approximately 811 kilometers of roads, while the South African National Road Agency, SANRAL, is responsible for the primary network, provinces and municipalities are responsible for the secondary, tertiary networks. Amongst the many challenges we seek to tackle, we remain burdened with the intractable challenge of the road maintenance backlog. However, we are putting in place interventions that will ensure a seamlessly integrated approach across all spheres of government in dealing with this challenge. Road freight transport has recorded a 48% growth in the last decade, with heavy goods vehicles making up 34% of traffic on the N3. It is worth noting that heavy goods vehicle crashes on that route is now at par with light vehicles. We are concerned that the levels of enforcement are not keeping pace with the growth of traffic, thereby aggravating the cost to the economy, estimated to be in excess of 300 billion rand per annum. It is estimated that the total transport sector contribution to the GDP was 5.5%. The sector contributed 4% to total employment in the same year, with the road freight sector being the largest section of the overall freight transport sector. The road freight industry faces a reduction of business activity, decreased revenues, and rising costs due to deteriorating roads and the closure of businesses, leading to a rise in unemployment. We currently have no system for monitoring the performance of commercial road freight operations in South Africa. The regulation of commercial transport as a separate activity from road traffic management is necessary because transport activities take place in the public space using state-owned infrastructure. Transport operators must therefore be held accountable for the externalities, this being noise, accidents, pollution, and damage to infrastructure. Quality regulated competition in the industry levels the playing field for operators and increases efficiency, while reducing externality costs to society and government. Regulation of the standards of operation of commercial transport, both passenger and goods, is an essential function of the transport authorities in all countries. The current regulatory framework and processes are not adequate to achieve the goal of operational compliance with a quality regulated monitoring system. The lack of single road transport authority to manage the monitoring and control of commercial transport has left decision-making fragmented and ineffective. This is due to the obvious authorities and agencies now involved in managing the regulation of the sector. The deficiencies in the legislation and regulatory system which were developed at the time have become more evident as the industry has expanded and changed in character in response to the demands of the economy. The wide range of substandard features in the regulation and management of the mode underscored the need for the redefinition of the South African road freight strategy. The transport and logistics sector has failed to support effective regional integration and the development of trade within the region. It further faces increasing pressures for harmonization of standards and liberalization of transport in the interest of effective cross-border trade. The pressures of increasing cost of fuel, labor, vehicle finance, and lower turnover are forcing transport operators to embark on all possible actions to contain cost and increase efficiency. In many cases, these processes lead to reduced vehicle maintenance and extending vehicle life, overloading, and undercutting quotations in order to maximize vehicle utilization. In order to control the externalities of road damage, pollution, speeding, accidents, and other negative actions by operators, we have identified the need for the revision of existing regulatory measures and enhancement of the planning, coordination and strategic framework of the road freight sector. Defining the roles of the public and private sector is important, as it will inform the necessary legislative changes to define a revision of the institutional order for both sectors. As noted in the National Freight Logistics Strategy adopted by Cabinet in 2005, the South African institutional model for the freight transport industry is complex, with significant distortions due to state-owned company monopoly positions. Road freight accounts for approximately 1.5 billion tons of cargo movements, of which about 700 million tons is urban freight transport and 500 million tons is provincial and rural freight. On the main corridors, road volumes constitute 47% or 180 million tons, with railways accounting for approximately 204 million tons or 53%. This situation is, however, typical of industrialized countries and largely unavoidable due to the large proportion of freight that is moved in urban and rural areas which are not served with distribution rail services. In addition, the main mineral resources of the country are located over 500 kilometers from the ports through which they are exported. There is, however, scope for additional transfer of cargo from road to rail on the main national corridors. The potential for immediate transfer for road to rail is relatively limited by the realities of the logistics demands and the presence of several negative factors, including the imbalance of South Africa's import and export trade. There is, however, significant potential for further entrepreneurial business development in the rail sector. A major factor determining the need for restructuring of the freight transport sector is the urgent requirement for extensive recapitalization and investment in transportation infrastructure and equipment in order to reduce the unsatisfied demand that has given rise to intermodal distortions of the transport of bulk commodities. It is unfortunate that historically the railways have suffered from undercapitalization and the need to focus on the long-haul movement of bulk commodities that are the main export trades of the country. Road freight movement places a serious fiscal burden on government, particularly where heavy vehicle overloading is concerned. The heavy vehicle operators are not paying the corresponding cost of damaging the road network. Hence, prices appear cheaper than is actually the case. Secondly, the impact of heavy vehicle accidents on both the fiscus and communities has not been accounted for in the cost of road freight transport. And lastly, the environmental impact of road-based freight transport through emissions and cargo spillages is often not incorporated. In South Africa, contrary to international best practice, road is the only mode of transport that is not adequately regulated. There is no effective regulation of road transport operators as business entities. It is essential that road freight operators are held responsible for compliance with all standards defined for vehicle, drivers, loads, operations, and elimination of externalities caused by their activities. And this is the primary cause of the current challenges within the freight logistic supply chain. There are currently major problems with aspects of enforcement of operator standards, and all too often it is the driver who receives the summons, and the operators are not implicated due to the overall ineffectiveness of the operator registration system. If the situation is to be changed in order to achieve effective regulation of the freight industry, it is necessary to introduce a more effective road transport operator registration. Cabinet approved the road freight strategy in 2017. The strategy seeks to address issues which negatively impact on the efficiency of the road freight sector. The intention of the strategy is to create an integrated regulatory and operational framework which will enable South Africa to be on par with international practice of road freight operation. This is essential for the future. Logistical support of industrial growth, road safety, limitations of externalities, and the creation of opportunities for employment. The strategy will enhance the efficiency of enforcement, promote road safety, improve the protection of the infrastructure, and reduce environmental impact, and the recommendations are also expected to create an integrated framework of quality, regulated competition within which the road freight sector can continue to serve the needs of the South African economy. The freight transport industry in South Africa uses approximately 360,000 heavy vehicles and a further 350,000 light commercial out of the total vehicle population of 10.2 million powered vehicles. Road transport is the source of 13% of greenhouse gases. In the urban areas, there is air pollution, noise and spillage onto roads that contributes to the pollution of water sources and overall degradation of these areas. In mitigating the effects of commercial transport, there is a significant move to more efficient heavy goods vehicle engines with reduced emission levels. The recent growth of the commercial road freight sector has been subdued in line with current industrial output of approximately 3% per annum, but will increase with further industrial expansion. The department, through the Road Traffic Management, is in the process of developing the National Operator Registration System, NORS, the purpose of which is to re-regulate the road freight sector as the only deregulated freight transport mode to date. Another glaring challenge is the lack of information about road freight movement, also linked to the inadequate regulation of the subsector. The Freight Data Bank was initiated to cap this problem, and since its inception in 2008, it has sought to provide valuable statistics on the movement of cargo across all modes of transport. The road counts were specially initiated to ensure accurate count of the freight road users. We appeal to all freight road users to comply with the current Freight Data Bank process as an attempt to ensure real-time data that will effectively assist government to better plan, manage, invest, and make effective policy choices for the progression of the freight sector. The intermodal interface is also an area of concern and planning, especially when it comes to the intermodal interface between the land, surface transport, as well as road and maritime. We are looking into the special planning horizon with the respective managerial agents, together with the respective cities and provincial authorities in relation to the movement of cargo. For the last couple of years, there has been a number of rampant incidents of torching of trucks, particularly on the N3, the corridor that carries an estimated 80% of the country's cargo, primarily from the port of Durban to the rest of the country. This corridor also caters for cargo destined for other SADC countries. The major point of contention is the purported illegal employment of foreign drivers, the place of equally skilled South African drivers by the road freight industry. However, we note that in the recent past, the looting and torching of trucks was due to the riots which spread to various parts of the country. It is said that heavily armed individuals hijacked trucks in an attempt to derail services and scare away foreign national drivers. This leads to violent murders, cargo delays, and sometimes looting and torching of trucks. Due to the fact that South African roads carry 80% of the country's cargo. When this happens, economic activity is stifled, and ordinary South African bears the cost directly. Effective regulation of the road industry will ensure that truck owners comply with the law by registering their workers, truck drivers, to ensure compliance with labor laws. This will also assist the government in understanding training shortfalls and mismatches where they exist in the industry to ensure that South African drivers are prioritized to cap the high unemployment rate in the country. In conclusion, it is of paramount importance that we work closely with the private sector to ensure equitable access to the industry that has been historically dominated by a particular section of the population. Working with industry associations like the RFA and TASA will ensure that efforts to transform the trucking industry receive the necessary support. Violence is never an answer, as it leads to economic setbacks that we cannot afford as a country. Matters raised by the conference, which are inter alia, includes efficacy at airports. I need to mention that part of my mandate was corporatization of National Ports Authority, which is a task I've executed, not yet with distinction. This will ensure that the revenue generated by ports is invested in port infrastructure, which we have seen that the Durban port have been overtaken by the African continent. We were number one in the African continent, and we have been overtaken. And corporatization will mean investment into our port and in terms of its expansion. This will include digitization and proper cranes. Other matters around the border challenges, I'm confident that the Border Management Agency will be one center that achieves a seamless flow of people and goods at borders. This is a bigger challenge that is facing our country. And it's a matter that we are attending to. And we have now inaugurated the BMG in terms of its establishment. And we've got a detailed plan of implementation, because we need to work together as agencies of the state in terms of executing our task in ensuring that our borders are safer and they are not as porous as they are supposed, as they are. I know that it is said that I'm in a hurry because we in government, most of the time, we get into places and like a helicopter, you land and then after it goes. Now, because you are an industry that is important in terms of our economic growth and recovery in our country, I don't want to live here without listening to you. Sometimes listening is a skill. A keynote address means that the minister with small trousers arrives and speaks and leaves. And then without listening to people, and we will only exchange on Twitter, those who are on Twitter. And then we will see ourselves in magazines through articles. But because I'm here, and we are not all the time given an opportunity to be together, even if I'm in a hurry, I can spare some time to listen to you. And so that I understand with all the things I'm talking about, I'm going to do, which you are critical probably about. I have in the recent past convened an important meeting to try and mitigate the attacks and the issues related to foreign drivers. That has been an issue in terms of the South African drivers mobilizing themselves outside the bargaining processes where unions are recognized and all of that, and then doing what they are doing. And we should be in a position in the coming weeks to sign an agreement out of those discussions. The Department of Labor is seized with the matter, and we are forming part of that interministerial committee. So what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that I am quite open, Program Director, with your permission, unless you yourself are in a hurry, to listen to you, maybe 5 of you or so, just to tell me what are your concerns, because I wanted, when you started this morning, I should be here, but I couldn't, honestly, because of transport challenges that we've got. Because of transport challenges that we've got in our country, because as most of the airline services liquidate and go under business rescue, we are faced with a big challenge in that front of aviation to actually cater for the populace and the air travelers in our country. But it's a matter that we need to address. Whilst we see some semblance and signal of the economy on the recovery in terms of statistics, South Africa, but it is, however, important that we need to work together. We are looking at the compact through the process of NEDLEC that we are talking about with the private sector, and that compact also will find expression in the freight industry and logistics. I have unveiled and launched the rail policy, and I've received a lot of positive feedback because we are talking also about a compact approach in terms of that sector, because government, even Transnet, cannot carry the freight and logistic on its own. So it requires private sector cooperation and intervention. So we open up and the industry, and in that way we will be in a position to realize our strategic goals in terms of growing the economy and creating jobs. So, Program Director, thank you very much for inviting me, and I am open to engagement if there are speakers and the leadership which want to share some thoughts and perspectives of this industry, and maybe critique even government about our approach and so on, and what you think should actually happen going forward. So thank you very much for having me and for this opportunity. Thank you, Program Director.
You mentioned the importance of the N3 corridor in terms of the percentage of cargo that goes through that area. And of course, everyone in this room, I would think, would agree that the freight industry must be compliant in terms of who is employed. But what are we doing to make sure that if that is the case, that corridor is protected and we don't see the kinds of disruptions that seem to happen at a whim whenever those protests do occur?
Bongani, you are right. When everybody seeks to promote anarchy like the shutdown that was planned yesterday, if they want to deal with economic activity and affect the economy, the main arteries of economic activity in the main is the entry, because it links us to the harbor. And that's what they target, as it would have been seen even with the riots. We know that the riots could not have, become a phenomenon that was uncontrollable if our security agencies responded on time. By the time we deployed the defense force, it was too late. Now, the law enforcement, we are part of it in terms of the Department of Transport, But what we discussed behind the scenes also in terms of our strategies is that how do we protect the key modal points that get to be affected by disruptions from time to time in terms of those who protest in one way or the other. And it has then brought to the fore the concept of integrated policing-led approach, where in which the main corridors like the N3 need our 24/7 protection. But also that comes to the point of our own strategy in terms of 24/7, but over policing on the roads, but over and above to strengthen the NTP, the National Traffic Police, to be able to detect some of these criminal activities and deal with them immediately. So these are both operational, but matters from the point of law enforcement, but also in the long term from a policy point of view. What we need to do is to implement our movement from road to rail policy, which will then make many other things quite easier for the industry. So that is where we are heading to, and introducing the rail policy in the manner in which we have done, also seek to intervene in that particular regard.
The next question is around the repairing of our roads. Why is it taking so long to do that? What's the plan?
If you look at what I talked about in my presentation here in terms of the keynote address, I characterize the roads in terms of national, provincial, and local. Of course, the roads are taking a heavy burden because of heavy trucks on the roads, and that affect the state of our roads in the long term. In terms of national roads, SANRAL is doing an important job in terms of road maintenance in the country, and I think we can all agree, but that is not sustainable. We then need to move in a different direction to limit the number of cargo and trucks on the roads. And that is what it is important for us going forward. And I think in this particular instance, we need to be working together to realize this strategic goal in South Africa. You will find that a national road is in a pristine condition. You come to regional roads, provincial roads, you've got potholes that are not fixed. Just this past week, I met with some people in the industry who said to us, how do you open up a space for us to intervene and repair roads, because these are roads that belong to national government and to government, but it affects our own business in terms of logistics. And how do you as government open up for the industry to fix the roads, particularly those that affect the transportation of cargo and goods on our roads? And we said we are amenable to that. And these are some of the things we actually need to resolve. But the government must do its job. And we were in a retreat in the past 2 weeks of economic cluster. We have now decided that we will take up the task of repairing regional roads, repairing potholes and all of that. How are we going to do that? Where will we get the money to fund that? We fund the provinces through what we call a PRMG grant. But most of the time, provinces, in terms of government, don't know or will not have the data in terms of the roads that need repairs in their own provinces, or rather the prioritization of the roads that need to be repaired, and the new roads that we need to build in the different provinces. So the decision we have actually taken is the decision of saying we will now take it upon ourselves to ensure that we repair the roads, and in the next coming weeks, costed intervention of National Treasury, led by Sanral, we will see the repairing of provincial roads and intervention by national government in terms of closing of potholes, which means the money that we have been allocating will be redirected to this central task, because we are sure that Sanral with its capacity will do the job. Because when the money arrives in the province, besides their equitable share, it is redirected to other challenges. Municipalities, it is worse. If people protest about storm drainage, that's where the money goes. If people are protesting about other issues in the local municipality, the money will be redirected. There is money allocated in terms of municipal infrastructure grant, but most of the time is not used to repair the roads. And that is what we are facing. And then corruption, also at the center of it. The other day I was talking to a group of farmers in the Western Cape. They say, no, we're talking to the municipal councillors. And then when we did our own study, we checked the road. The road is costing 6 million. And the road is a strategic road in terms of economic activity and all of that. And then we said we can repair this road for 6 million, give us the mandate to do that. The council and the councillor said, no, wait, we are going to do our own study. And then they went, and this is a true story, and they came back and they said, no, this road, you can repair it, but it is not 6 million, it's 600 million. And then they came and reported to me, and then, so how can a road of 6 million become 600 million? And now these are experts who know and who want to contribute, who know the lifespan of the road, what it takes to repair a road and all of that. Here are some fellows who say that the road is 600 million. They don't even have engineering capacity to come to that particular conclusion. So these are the challenges we are faced with. So if we take it upon ourselves to repair and maintain roads in the country and expand the capacity of Sanral, we will not have a problem. And the only time they come to Sanral and to us, that is now the municipalities and the roads. I'm repairing a road now in Volmaranstad. Some of you will know, between Klerksdorp, Volmaranstad, going to, because the provincial government took a decision that part of that road, they take it upon themselves. It's a national road. They will repair it. They couldn't repair that road. The potholes, I was walking, it's like a dam. And then the reason why they couldn't repair the road, nobody can explain. They had the money. 80 million was taken back by Treasury in the form of a rollover. It was not repaired. And then I'm working there. In the next coming weeks, I'm opening that road. Sanral have finished repairing the road. But I'm arguing with the provincial government about, give me the road. They say no. You know why? It's because somebody is benefiting out of road maintenance through corruption. It's called the javelin. You throw it and then the other person will get it that other side. And then that's what is happening. So corruption in reality, they try to be sophisticated, but it's corruption. So corruption affects social upliftment and development even of infrastructure in our country. You will find that a road has been repaired, it is not finished. Why? Because a contractor who does not have the capacity was given a tender. Along the way, that contractor disappeared. Now, when Sanral decided, not me, to stop the contracts in terms of road infrastructure in the country, they explained what are the reasons for that. But those contracts will be coming back and then will be re-advertised for the infrastructure, including in the N2, the M10, and then Msikaba is in operation, which now cut the distance, also in terms of freight of goods and also people and all of that. So we should be in a position to address that situation as soon as possible. Now, we have intervened in that regard because it was important to get these contracts back on track, but also it was to preempt any possible corruption that might come out of those contracts. So we are taking it upon ourselves. It is not sustainable. We will have to work on a strategy as to how do we make this intervention we are going to be making in the fixing of potholes to be something that is sustainable going forward. Thank you.
Minister, one of the earlier speakers showed us a picture she took last night of Durban Harbour and the massive queue of ships there. So the question is, what is the plan to get the ranking of South African ports back up the ladder where it used to be? We are now rated with 3 of the worst ports in the world. What's the plan?
Well, I've addressed that corporatization enable us to intervene. You would have seen us with the president unveiling the plan after the implementation of corporatization of TNPA, the plan of expanding the Durban Harbour to be in a position to meet the standards and to compete globally. I think the corporatization plan enables us to ensure that we are able to redirect the resources in the development of the port, which was not the case. Because what Transnet will do will take what was coming to TNPA and invest it in their own operations. In this particular instance, it makes TNPA independent and to focus on the expansion of the port. This is what is being implemented as we speak now. We've got a CEO there, and we also have got a new port, and we have unveiled and formally implemented the corporatization plan. You may not see the results now, but in the next 10 years, and I will not be minister in the next 10 years, probably I'll be president of the country. So in that time, Durban Port will look different. It will be back in terms of taking up its status in the African continent and globally. And it is correct. In terms of how it is positioned at the present moment, it is a complete disaster. And there is congestion and all of that. And this is what we seek to address with corporatization.
Will the issue of the e-tolls be revisited?
The e-tolls, we are dealing with the e-tolls in terms of finalizing the e-tolls in South Africa with Treasury. If the Minister of Transport and Transport was deciding these matters on its own without fiscus and pressures and all of that and Treasury, we probably would have been somewhere. And we would have implemented the phasing out of e-tolls by implementing the fuel levy. Now, you will know that that is not an option today, given the challenges we are actually facing in terms of the cost of fuel in our country and so on. So Treasury said, let's look at when we came with that, and Cabinet adopted our approach. Now, at the doorstep, when we're going to announce, we're stopped. Because the people who make a determination in terms of tax levy in the country is National Treasury. It's not the Department of Transport. So which means there's got to be concurrence. As much as there was agreement, we had to then relook at the position. Because this also affects Central balance sheet, we've got to deal with this particular matter as a matter of agency. There are many options we looked at, but in the main, we're looking at the option of scrapping of the e-tolls. So don't say that Mbalula said the e-tolls will be scrapped. So we're looking at that. If we scrap the e-tolls, what do we do? Remember, the e-tolls were anchored on the principle of user pay principle, meaning it is not only government, but all of us will contribute in the upgrading of the roads. So there are all sorts of things that we actually look at. So the new Minister of Finance is dealing with the approach in terms of what he's looking at with his team. And the President gave us a time frame that before the next MTPBS, this matter must be finalized. Because when we're in the bush, these are some of the issues we looked at as the burning platform. When I was doing rounds with Sandral internationally and went to London and everywhere and met with bond lenders, they said to me, Minister, we don't care, but just take a decision. Take a decision how you as the South African government pay the debt, whether you pay it in a way you wish to do it, but as long as you are able, we don't have a problem. We're not going to dictate to you what policy direction you're going to follow in terms of upgrading your roads and at the same time addressing the question of how you're going to fund road construction projects in South Africa. That is absolutely within your right. So the e-tolls will be finalized before the next MTPBS. Now, if they are not finalized by then, it means our political principal, as he had given us the direction with the Minister of Finance leading in this discussion, we will have to deal, you will have to deal with him, not me, about that decision. But already there are implications in terms of this, which we've got to address. What happens to the people who have been paying? What happened to the people who have not been paying, which it is a debt? An individual probably, by the time we finalize this matter, will be owing about 500,000 to the kitty of the e-tolls. So we've got to address that. But also, what do we do with those who have been loyal, firm, and paying? Now, we've got the money that is allocated to repair the roads. Now, that money is no longer in its entirety used to repair the roads. Part of it is used to service the debt of the e-tolls. Now, we've got to address all of these issues in our new approach of the e-tolls, but most importantly, taking into consideration the user. What is the user? For everything that we use, we've got to come to the party. The residents of Soweto say, you're owing Eskom over billions of rands, and then they cut that debt almost to 9 billion. You give them options on the table that, look, just get what is called prepay in your household, and then your problem is resolved, because you will now be in a position to use electricity according to your needs. And then they protest against that. Otherwise, the problem would have been resolved between them and Eskom. Now, you can't provide electricity for free. Now, there comes the new government in Johannesburg, and they say that, no, with us, you are going to pay. We're not going to take it that you just stay, you consume, but you don't want to pay. So the user pay principle must apply. If you don't want prepaid, one way or the other, and then we talk about the flat rate. Now I'm with the president in Soweto. We're talking to the residents. And then we ask them. The other one say, no, we must pay 5 rand you know, all of us here, and then they agree it's a big meeting. Yes! Now, you want these people to vote for you tomorrow, and then you are in a predicament. You can't lie to them, you can't say anything, but the point is that you've got to provide solutions. But honestly, some of the challenges that we've got is because we have not, the inability to take a decision and implement it have got far-reaching consequences. We've been in and out of court with OUTA on the matter of the e-tolls, and they lost each and every case against us as government. Yes, that is true. Government. They took us to court on behalf of the residents and all of that. And then I met with them. We discussed, what do you think should we do with this? Yes, let's scrap, but what are the options on the table? Where am I heading to? I want to do away with the e-tolls, but at the same time, how do we address the situation of government intervention in terms of upgrading our roads? By now, we should have been in the second phase of GFIP, what is called Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. If you look at the GFIP and you look at how it was implemented in Kenya, you will see that the model, if it was implemented here in South Africa in that way, we wouldn't be having protests. Because in Kenya, when you go now, you've got a freeway, which is GFIP, and you've got another one which is not. If you are on the one that is paid, and you've got to pay, you know that there is free flow of traffic. But that one that is not paying, there is congestion. And so most of the people now are beginning to use this part. And they pay. There is no protest in Kenya about the improvement of the freeway. Now, Gauteng, and in particular Johannesburg, is the center of economic lifeblood into South Africa's economy. So in this particular instance, it is important that this freeway project, because of congestion in Gauteng, it was implemented there. But at the end of the day, the model in which we implemented, people just woke up and saw countries, and they thought it is World Cup welcoming. World Cup, they thought, no, hey, this World Cup is coming with new things. What is this? And then in no time, somebody explained to them, every time you pass there, you are going to pay. They said, what? And then there was a big uproar in the country. You can argue with people because, as I conclude, Bongani, on that point, government tried many things, including to say the working class people must not pay. You pass with a bus, with a taxi, you don't pay. Only those middle class and upper classes in our society will pay in terms of the e-tolls. But it didn't work. Now we are here where we are, where you've got civil disobedience and defiance. Government is paying one way or the other for the debt of the e-tolls. So what is the solution to the e-tolls and also the GFIP project going forward? I know you didn't ask me all of the other things. It's like somebody asked one question and he answers even things that he was not asked. And then that's how you get caught. So the point I'm raising is that MTPBS is the time in which line we have put for ourselves. The Minister of Finance said he can meet that timeline. The President have intervened that even before then, we should have come with solution to cabinet on this matter. I was just raising some of the loose challenges we face with the e-tolls, but we will find a solution. So our issue on the table, which has been raised by citizens, was that scrap the e-tolls. If we scrap, what are the implications? If people contribute, how do they contribute if they have to? But everybody has got to come to the party.